Picture a queen in the grandest courtroom of the ancient world. She is married to 5 invincible warriors. She is protected by legendary elders who have never lost a battle. Yet, in this moment, she is defenseless. Minutes earlier, her husband Yudhishthira succumbed to the fever of a high-stakes dice game. Driven by a gambler's addiction, he wagered his wealth, his kingdom, his brothers, and finally his own freedom, losing every single roll. With nothing left, he wagered his wife, Queen Draupadi. When the dice fell against him one last time, she was dragged by her hair into the assembly of men by the prince Dushasana. The violence of the assault is unmistakable, yet the weight of the moment rests on the silence of the men watching, elders and kings who observe the scene without a word of protest. Draupadi refuses to beg for mercy. Instead, she brings the room to a halt by turning from a victim into an interrogator, presenting the court with a single, unanswerable question. This logic tree maps her paradox. The timeline shows Yudhishthira lost his freedom first. By law, he instantly became a slave. A slave has no rights and owns nothing. It was therefore impossible for a man who owned nothing to wager his wife next. If the court rules that Yudhishthira had the right to wager her, they admit their highly structured laws are meaningless. If they admit he had no right, they must acknowledge the Kuru crown is committing a crime. The question hangs in the air. Every tier of power in the room has an obligation to intervene, yet nobody speaks. Her 5 husbands stare at the floor. They are trapped by a warrior's code and absolute obedience to their eldest brother, choosing the technical rules of the game over the safety of their wife. Then there are the elders, Bhishma and Drona. They are the authorities of tradition and morality, but they also operate as employees of the state. Bound by oaths of loyalty to the throne, they refuse to act against the sitting king. This is the peril of blind dharma, the practice of following the literal letter of the law while abandoning its moral purpose. The elders and husbands convince themselves they are upholding honor, but by hiding behind legal technicalities, they provide the villains in the room an uncontested permit to operate. For Prince Duryodhana, this silence is total vindication. He looks at the elders and realizes there are 0 earthly consequences for his actions. Emboldened by the moral hesitation of his superiors, Duryodhana crosses the final line. He issues a command to his brother, publicly disrobe the queen. Dushasana steps forward and grabs the fabric of her saree. A failed legal system has now been weaponized to commit a public act of shame. Draupadi looks around the vast hall. Every human institution, every social rule, and every man of power has abandoned her. With every human defender silent, the moral authority of the court vanishes. This breakdown of earthly protection leaves her with only one remaining recourse. Recognizing the futility of human help, Draupadi stops fighting. She lets go of her garment, raises both hands, and calls out to Krishna. Dushasana pulls the fabric, expecting her to be stripped bare. But the cloth never ends. Endless bright silk cascades onto the floor, defying physical limits. The prince pulls until his muscles tear, and he collapses from exhaustion, defeated by an infinite cycle of protection. As the pile of fabric fills the hall, the silence of the court is answered by a miracle that bypasses human law entirely. The mood in the hall shifts from arrogance to terror. Jackals begin howling in the distance, and dark omens manifest inside the court. Panicking at the supernatural display, the blind king Dhritarashtra attempts a reversal. He immediately halts the game and grants the Pandava brothers their freedom. But the moral line has already been crossed. This temporary pause leads straight into a final challenge, condemning the brothers and Draupadi to a 13-year exile in the forest. The silence of the elders in this room leads directly to the bloodshed of the Kurukshetra war years later. A society that fails to protect the vulnerable in a royal court ensures its own violent ruin on the battlefield. Follow along for our next episode, where we explore the trials of the Pandavas' forest exile.